And by the way, feel free to dance during the intro, because I will be.
It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of Event Icons. Presented by Endless Events. The show where you get to ask the icons of the event industry anything. So, you might be wondering, how do you get to ask questions? All you have to do is use the question panel on the right of GoToWebinar to submit your questions. Or you can hop on Twitter to submit your questions with the hashtag EventIcons. We'll be answering your questions live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better conversation we can have. So please help share hashtag EventIcons on Twitter and Facebook. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com. Now, without any further delay, this is hashtag Event Icons with your hosts, Will Curran of Endless Events, Laura Lopez of Social Tables, and Brant Kruger of Event Technology Consulting.
All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to Event Icons. It is a special edition of Event Icons because we have a wonderful, amazing, special guest host. Will and Laura are on assignment. Anybody who's watching to us live or in the recording, we had some shenanigans with GoToWebinar, so I am clearly labeled as Will Curran, although I am not. I'm glad to be here, Brant Kruger. But we are being joined by the one, the only special guest host, Liz King. Liz, thanks so much for joining us on this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I've only been a guest so far.
Well, the rule is once you've been a guest a certain number of times, you actually get to become a host. It's just one of those things. That's how I badgered my way onto this show. Is bashing away at it, and I said, let me be a guest again. Let me be a guest again, and then I just bullied my way onto the show. So.
Yeah, the audition process is pretty intense too, though.
It is, isn't it, though? It's the survey you had to fill out, the legal documents. But thank you so much for joining us. And actually, we're warming Liz up to be a host on her own as a special guest to come in from time to time when the three of us aren't able to make it. So thank you again, Liz, for joining us, and thank you for your upcoming guest hosting that's coming up.
I'm excited.
But we are here this week to talk about weddings, and we're going to be talking about kind of the perfect wedding, the best weddings that we can do. We're being joined by two amazing special guests here. We've got Sasha Souza, who is the event designer, influencer, wedding planner, and event industry mentor from Sasha Souza Events. Sasha, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for also being another person who likes to sit on a ball on their desks. Cool people sit on a ball. That's right. I said it. But we're also being joined by Kathy. We're also being joined by Kathy Piech-Lukas, who is the president and lead event designer for Your Dream Day LLC.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Awesome. So thank you guys so much for joining us. This is fun. What I love about doing this show is that it gets me out of my wheelhouse. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. The weddings is not anything that I have touched except other than my own, as far as what we've done, as far as what I've done professionally. So I enjoy it because there are so many different aspects to when we talk about meetings and events. There's so many different kinds of events, and so without a doubt, weddings has to be, one of the most important, kind of subdivisions of events because it's, much like all events, but even more so, you only get one shot at it. And that's got to be a big part of what you guys do. So, I mean, I don't think I could even remotely touch that because at least for most of the shows that I work on, there's always next year, if something goes horribly wrong. And I would sincerely hope that's not the case for most of your clients.
No. It's the one-shot deal. It's
exactly.
One time, one day, in and out. I say it's the only type of theater you set up and tear down in the same day.
Exactly. So I'm going to start with the questions that we always start with because we've got kind of the warm-up questions to get things moving. And we'll start with you, Sasha. What got you into this industry? What got you into the business?
Well, it's a really long story, so I'll just give you as much of the Cliff Notes version as I can. But I wanted to be able to stay at home with my son, and who's now 25 years old, and I wanted to be able to make about $500 a month, right? I have big aspirations for my business. And I picked up a book called 101 Best Home-Based Businesses, and in there One of them was wedding planner, and I contacted the Association of Bridal Consultants because that's who had told me to contact. And I did their novice program and their accredited program and then their master program. So that was 22 years ago. And my needs are a little bit higher now than they were back then. But, you know, I started basically before, you know, before Martha Stewart had her magazine and before, you know, the internet as we know it stands. So I learned HTML and did a lot of work in order to establish myself. But it's been a great ride, and I love what I do every day. I just happen to find it randomly in a book.
And Kathy, how about you? How did you get into this business?
It was kind of a fluke. Prior to opening Your Dream Day, which is my wedding planning company, I worked on the corporate side. So I did trade shows, product launches, media blitzes, and things like that. I actually worked at Owens Corning and for Sprint. So very, very corporate. And at the time, my husband and I were engaged. I was starting to do some freelance work. And so I would have a contract for a few months with this particular client and then a couple months with this client. And the contract I had been doing the month before my wedding wrapped up. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to spend the next few weeks just focus on the wedding. And then as soon as I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and just, you know, decide, do I want to go back somewhere full time? What do I want to do? Well, during that 1 month, I had 5 different vendors go, have you ever thought about being a wedding planner? And my response back was, what's a wedding planner? Because it was before all the reality shows. I mean, as far as I was concerned, I thought a wedding planner was somebody like Father of the Bride who was totally male, totally gay, and lived in New York City. I didn't realize they actually were all over the United States. And so, you know, I said, well, no, I had never thought about it, but I'm going to go sun myself in Riviera Maya, and I'll talk to you when I get back. And I took all of those different vendors out one-on-one and learned more about what a wedding planner was. And, you know, I said, you know, this might be an interesting fit. And so my husband said, we'll give it a year. And 13 years later, here I am. So needless to say, I stumbled into it, but obviously people saw something in me that I didn't realize was there, and that was how I got into wedding planning.
So what would you be doing if you hadn't fallen into that and decided after baking in the sun, making that decision? What would you have been, a cabana girl? I don't know. Would you continue to bake in the sun? I don't know. What would you have done?
Truthfully, I probably would have ended up doing marketing communications for another corporation, most likely. I could have totally seen myself doing that.
Okay, all right. And Sasha, how about
I'm doing what I'm doing?
Great, Sasha. How about you? What if you didn't wind up doing what you were doing? What would you be doing instead?
You know, at the time when I started my business, I was working in internal audit for a national laboratory. I would certainly hope I wouldn't still be there because it wasn't my passion. But I love to cook. And one of my biggest regrets is not going to culinary school. So maybe that's what I would be doing. I mean, I honestly, I don't know, because I can't think of another thing that I would rather be doing. So it's hard to say.
I do have to say, for years I worked on a program that was for a national organization of internal auditors, and they were by far my favorite client because they were always on time. So,
yeah, they are.
All right. Well, we're not here to.
They don't like their audit reports to look pretty. They don't. They don't. I they were like, no.
What kind of trends are you guys seeing in the industry? Specifically, I'm curious about millennials and anything you're seeing in terms of how they're spending their budgets or what they're looking for in a wedding that maybe is different from past generations.
Do you want to take that, Kathy?
Yeah, I would say and this wouldn't even necessarily be a wedding trend, but one thing I have noticed almost across the board from millennials is how they communicate with their vendors. I would, even 4 years ago, I wasn't dealing with it to the extent that I am today. I communicate with them by text message, instant messenger, sometimes they get me on Instagram, but it's not just email or phone call anymore. And with the millennials, they also want to get to know you as a person and what drives you and why do you do what you do. And so I found as a wedding planner, I was always the type of person that opens up. I always joke with my husband I'd be a horrible lawyer because I'm an open book. But you find with millennials that they appreciate that because they want to know who you are, why are you doing what you're doing, and is that passion going to come through in my wedding? But as far as trends go, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of cascading flowers. It's all over Pinterest, and I'm getting that request quite a bit for hanging flowers and like gardens, a garden look, whites, greens, things like that.
So here's my thing. I have no issues with millennial clients. You know, I have other people who tell me they're super needy. I establish my kind of rules of engagement pretty early on in working with my clients. And, you know, they're not texting me. They're not private messaging me on Facebook. They're sending me emails or they're calling my office. That's just my way. But that being, you know, said, I feel like I kind of do things a little bit differently in my business. So let me back up. I don't really look at what's trendy or trending. That's not our deal. So I'm not spending a lot of time on that. I'm spending more time trying to get to know who the client is. So all of that time is invested into creating that's theirs and unique to who they are as a couple. So I mean, I think as far as like, you know, what our couples are asking for, I do a lot of outdoor events. We're known for kind of this outdoor, make the event fit the space type of aesthetic. And, you know, I find that they're just looking for a really awesome time, just like we are if we were holding a party. That they don't want to overspend their budget. They don't have it. Their parents don't have it. They're not mortgaging their houses to get a wedding. They just want to have a really fun time with their friends. And, you know, so, I mean, as far as like trends and such, I have to admit, I just don't follow them.
That's interesting. You know, one thing you brought up, Kathy, was about Pinterest, and that's one trend I actually expected you guys to say. I heard from a lot of wedding planners that they're like the Pinterest bridezillas who come in with a great picture and they have no idea how much it costs to make that. Are you seeing anything with either Pinterest in particular, but also just DIY? I feel like everyone's trying to do that these days.
With Pinterest, you know, it is what it is. It's one of those necessary evils that you just have to incorporate into your routine. And so, you know, one of the first questions I'll tell a bride is, you know, if you're going to use Pinterest, use it for ideas, share, create a special folder just for you and me and make it a private folder. And then when you post a photo, put in the notes section what you like about that photo. Like, do you like the cake topper on that? Do you like the red rose that's in that arrangement? Or I can't stand this cake stand. Because a lot of what we do is, you know, the bride and groom have a vision in their mind and you're trying to translate it into something tangible. And so that, with respect to Pinterest, that's very helpful in the sense that you can kind of translate what they're trying to communicate to you. And again, kind of going back on you know, what I believe Sasha was, or Liz was just saying, with you have a lot of people doing styled shoots, and when you have those styled shoots, they don't realize that's just one table. It's not an entire wedding reception. So then they show you this Pinterest image that is $500 for a centerpiece, and then you have to break it to them what the cost would be for something like that. And then that's where you bring in your floral team and your linen people, and you try to either scale it down, or maybe you do one showstopper table with only that, or you do flower substitution so that it falls into a more reasonable budget.
Well, and Liz, you recently just got married yourself. I mean, how much did trends influence your, you know, planning as you went into it? I mean, I'm curious to get it from kind of from the bride's side of a more recent wedding.
Yeah, I just got married a little over 2 months ago, and I was definitely the Pinterest bride. But thankfully, I think because of my corporate, you know, background, I knew what was realistic. But halfway through the planning, I read this article like how to not make your wedding look like you stole it from Pinterest, because everyone totally is. And it was just the idea of like taking what you see, being inspired by it, and then seeing how you can make it your own and make it reflect you. And that was something that I definitely experienced. The other thing that I thought about, I know we were super intentional about not only the people that we invited, but the ceremony and how that all worked. And we wanted it to really, we actually had our guests take vows because we thought like, hey, we're inviting you to be a part of this thing. Like you should be a part of the marriage. We live streamed our wedding. So, I mean, those are things that I just wondered, like, is that just something all millennials are doing or am I the crazy one?
Liz, you just gave me a fabulous idea. Have the guests take wedding vows. I vow not to use a flash during the ceremony. I vow not to use my cell phone down the aisle so it ruins the professional photographer's picture.
I realized at my wedding that I was clearly about the pictures in the video. There was actually a perspective from the live stream where I don't even think the guests could see us because we had so many like cameras around us, and I'm sure it will look great on for the memories, but the poor people who were there, I don't know what they saw.
So you didn't have a drone instead of a photographer?
Oh, God.
Oh, I really wanted to do the drone, but it didn't work.
Toys.
I mean, they sound like a swarm of bees. Like, do you want that during your ceremony?
They're super loud.
I'm sorry.
So, Sasha, what's the weirdest thing that a client has ever requested at a wedding?
Oh.
I can't wait to hear this one.
Okay. We have many stories, but we had, and I should call Mel in here. She's in the other room right now. No, she's not wearing her face. Well, we had a bride request a gross of doves. She wanted 144 doves at her wedding, and when we called the dove man, he said, well, first off, that's enough, more than enough for a stadium, but secondarily, that's a lot of poo. He was like, that's way too much crap, right? So we ended up with 60 doves, and one of the guests got bombed by a dove. The dove flew straight at it, and she was like, we had another client request that they release all the farm animals at the event because it would add to the authenticity of the party. But we have coyotes, so that wasn't going to work out. I mean, there's like a million of, I have a million of them, like really. It's a book's worth of ridiculous requests.
Kathy, any good ones for you?
Oh boy. Do you want the crazy stories or the crazy requests?
Either one, I'd say.
Oh,
or both, if they're good.
Oh boy. Probably the craziest, it wasn't necessarily a crazy request, but it was just something that had to be done very, very, very quickly, or otherwise the wedding could have become a disaster. We had a wedding ceremony inside an unair-conditioned Catholic church, and it was 97 degrees outside and 110 heat index outside. And we were telling the bride and her parents, were like, unless we get air conditioning pumped into that church, people, it's not just that they're going to be hot, you're actually putting them at risk for heat stroke in that type of an environment. And so literally 3 days before the wedding, I was able to get commercial air conditioning, and a truck pulled up to the side of the church at 7 in the morning and started cranking in cold air through one stained glass window and used the opposite one as the return, I guess. And her dad he said, I want icicles growing off of my eyebrows. He's like, I want it that cold. And I said, I will do my best. And needless to say, we got it down to 75 degrees. All the guests were able to enjoy the ceremony. We had program fans just as a backup anyways, because we knew it was that hot that time of year. And the dad ended up toasting me while I was working on the chocolate fountain during his welcome speech. So that was a real honor. Craziest story would be, the morning of a wedding, I'm banging on my bride's door because we were going to touch up her dresses and steam them and whatnot, and nobody was coming to the door, and I'm like, I know this is her room. So after banging for like 20 minutes, she finally comes to the door, and she's like, hi, and I'm like, oh, what's the matter? She's like, I didn't sleep much last night. And I'm like, oh, are you excited about your wedding? She goes, no, my matron of honor got arrested.
Perfect.
And I went, what? Like, okay, rewind. What happened? Long story short, and this was not. I mean, this was like a $70,000 budget wedding. This was by no means a low, income family or anything. And long story short, what had happened was at the rehearsal dinner, the matron of honor decided to take off for a couple of hours, not telling anybody where she went. She got drunk, came back with 2 men on her arms. She and her husband got into a fight in the parking lot. She slapped him, and a cop booked her on spousal battery and public intoxication on Labor Day weekend. So, needless to say, I'm fortunate that my husband works in government. I called him up and I said, Jim, who do we know? We got to pull a big favor today. And needless to say, we got a lawyer who happened to be the mayor of Mason at the time. And we got the judge out of his little cottage where he was staying. And we had an emergency hearing. And the matron of honor comes in her yellow jumpsuit and shackles on her hands and her feet and everything. And then we had somebody else sit in as the bridesmaid in her dress, whoever it was a girl who fit the size, basically. So she was a stand-in. And the bailiff goes to the mother of the bride, I don't know who your wedding planner knows, but this never happens. And we got her out in time for the 7 o'clock Catholic ceremony.
Oh, man.
I think that one's going to be hard to top. It was pretty low.
I got attacked by a bride who was high on ecstasy.
I think
all right.
the mom's popping Klonopin pills all night. Let me tell you, that's a combination.
Oh gosh. So clearly weddings don't always go as planned.
Nothing shocks me anymore. You just you develop it.
I guess these stories are rampant around the whole industry, like weddings, but also corporate events. Crazy
corporate events are a nice change of pace from weddings.
This is why event planners are like one of the top-rated, most stressful jobs. I think all these.
Oh, come on! I hate that. I have to say.
I always say, like, really.
I love my job. It's so unpredictable.
Like I actually think that it's a little degrading, personally.
You want to expand? I kind of agree with you, but
yeah.
I'd be interested to hear what you think about it. No.
I agree.
Do you want to expand on why you think that? Because I kind of agree with you, but
I feel like our job we aren't risking our lives to do our jobs. We're making people happy. And if you look at that list of 10, and we're 6 or something like that, like there are jobs that are much more difficult and life and death than planning a wedding. Like registered nurse. You know what I mean, is one for me that I go, ICU nurse and NICU nurse. My stepfather is an OBGYN. We're talking about people who lose their lives every day. We're wedding and event planners. For crying out loud, we work in a job that is 90% filled with joy. And to be included in that, I never share that intel because I think it's really in poor taste and puts all of the other more important jobs in that aren't getting ranked. I don't like it. So
I'd love to see how they come up with that list. Like, really?
I have opinions. Anyway.
That's good.
The follow-up from the chat, Nick Borelli is actually wondering, so what's the best way we can start to climb down that list of most stressful jobs?
Oh, I don't know. We should ask Nick. Nick, I'm sure, has the answer to that. I think we stopped sharing it. I think we stopped talking about how horrible our job is all the time and how stressful it is. And we talk more about all of the joy that we bring to people and how much fun we actually do have. And I think that there's a lot of rhetoric in our industry about, oh, well, she got into being a wedding planner because she planned her own wedding. Well, guess what? So did I. So did Kathy. It's the nature of the beast. Who cares how you got into the business? It's all about whether or not you're talented at that point. If you're not talented, you're going to go nowhere. It doesn't matter. But, you stop talking about how terrible our job is and how stressful it is, when really it's a great joy and honor to do this job every day.
I love my job. And I think Sasha would probably say the same thing. I think if you are a long-term person in the industry, especially as a wedding planner, you have to have a very thick skin. You have to be able to roll with the punches, go with the flow, and just always have a happy-go-lucky kind of attitude with it. And I think the people who are saying, oh, it's such a horrible, stressful job, they're not managing their own personal stress well. Because I mean, I remember when 2 years into the job, one time I went into a bathroom stall and just cried because I was so stressed out. I mean, nowadays I look back and go, oh my gosh, you know, I've grown so much as a person, but I also, you know, I also take better mental care of myself now. And, you know, I take time out of the day and say, okay, this is Kathy time, and nobody can text me now and nobody can call me now. And if you take care of yourself, you're taking even better care of your clients.
I think we've all had those moments in one way or another. When it's,
what's going to go wrong?
I've definitely destroyed some furniture in the past due to something going wrong. But like you said, you get better at handling it. You get better at learning how to let it kind of roll off and not affect you so much. And so it's an interesting part of the discussion. I can certainly feel what you guys are saying, Sasha and Liz, about, maybe we don't promote it as much and let some of the more like dangerous jobs actually take more credit than they do. I mean, but I can't, there is no doubt that it's stressful. I'm curious though, if, when things do go wrong, obviously for any event planner or meeting planner, when things do go wrong, how you handle is important. Are there any things specific to weddings though that you handle that just a little bit differently compared to maybe some of the other meeting and event planners?
Well, for me, I don't go straight to the client when there's a problem, right? If it's a problem I can't fix, I won't even go to, I'll have to go to somebody. But if it's something that I can fix easily, I won't even bring it up. There's no reason unless they come to me and mention it. I just think that you have to be cool under pressure no matter what. And I think that goes with any business where you are in charge of something, whether that be a project and the project goes wrong. You have to have a really great skill level at managing that type of stress. So that being said, I just don't go to the client unless I have to. I fix it.
And that's probably good advice for anybody, is that you don't necessarily go running and freak out the client. And that's another thing I think that comes with age, or not so much age, but experience, experience level. But much like the stress levels, you learn how to deal with it. And it's the same thing with doing with clients. So I retract my age comment and make it about experience levels.
I forgive you.
Live show.
What do you guys think is something that like a wedding client should just not ask their event planner to do? Like a wedding planner does many things for their clients, but where is that line? What are the things you're just not comfortable doing for your clients?
Well, I mean, I say I'll do anything that's legal. That's my... I'm not going to go to prison over it. I'm like, I don't know if I have a limit. I mean, I've watched brand new puppies that were delivered to the bride the day of the wedding. I've, held the baby. There's a lot of, stuff that, I'll do. And I'll do it more out of just because it's easy for me to take care of it more than anything else. It's easier for me to do it and then say yes than to explain why I can't.
Probably the one thing that I put my foot down with clients with is I do not want to be touching purses. I do not want to be moving purses. I do not want to be moving gifts or any gift money cards without supervision from somebody from the family who is designated in the contract. I learned that lesson very early on. Actually, it was my first year in business, and I had one of those wooden gift boxes that had the screws on the opposite side. It would have been very, very difficult to get the gift cards out of there. And I kept asking the banquet facility manager there, can we please take these up to the honeymoon suite? Can we please take these up to the honeymoon suite? And she just kept blowing me off and blowing me off and blowing me off. And then finally, at 11 o'clock, about 30 minutes before the ceremony, or the reception was about to end, she finally sends a bellboy over. They load everything up there. And as we're putting it on the cart, we joked about, oh, they didn't get a lot of money cards. Well, we got up to the honeymoon suite and we actually peeked inside and there was nothing in there. And we were like, oh my gosh. And so we hoped that she had pulled them out for safekeeping, but just to be safe, I had to file a security report with security just to kind of cover my own tracks. And Monday morning, we got a hold of the banquet manager. She did not take the cards. So to this day, I don't know what happened with the cards. And after that wedding, there is a clause in my contract that clearly states we are not responsible for the security of the event. So I have had some situations where I had one father of the bride who wanted security guards because he was worried about people crashing the wedding. It was a Greek wedding, but I don't like touching things that are very financially expensive or valuable.
Mm-hmm. So shifting gears a little bit, a question coming in from the audience: with the legalization of gay marriage, has anything changed drastically in the business over the last couple of years?
Vernacular. So you don't refer to them as bride and groom. My website, my clients that are part of my consultancy business, I tell them all the time, you can't say bridegroom, bridegroom, bridegroom. It's couples. You know, couples want. You know, it's. I never want anybody to feel like our services are not for them, and so that's why I changed it a long time ago. You know, to couples for that reason.
I would agree with Sasha on that one. And the other thing that's been interesting about gay weddings is they tend to spend more on their weddings because they've been waiting for so long to have all that legislation go through. And now that it's gone through, they're ready to party. So that's the one thing that I found with that. Although I've had all girl ones. I've not had a guy one yet. I'm dying to have one of those.
Now, you guys know that non-traditional venues are on the rise, both in corporate and also in wedding events. What are some things that clients, brides, grooms need to know about a venue if it's not traditionally a wedding venue? I know I did that, and we had some issues. It was also gave us a lot of flexibility too, because they weren't used to doing it, and they kept saying, "Well, you're the planner. You just tell us what you want." But you know, if someone is not a planner and they want to use a non-traditional venue, what are some things they need to be aware of?
Do you want to take that, Kathy, or do you want me to take it? I feel like
let's see. Remember that a barn was a barn. No, really, especially with the non-traditional ones, we have a lot of barns popping up everywhere, at least in Ohio, and just you've got to plan for a plan B no matter what. I mean, if it's going to rain, you know, you might have some humidity issues. You may have flooding. You know, you have to always have a plan A and a plan B ready to go with a non-traditional venue. That would probably be the big thing, I would say.
I think for us also, you're talking about things like potable water, restrooms, bug abatement. So we have a service that basically creates a bubble around your event. We hire a meteorologist who takes care of all of our weather issues. So if there's something that we're possibly looking at,
he just takes care of it for you. Just makes it all go.
Yeah, he tells me. He'll be like, "Oh, by the way, it looks like it should be raining there right now. How is it?" We're like, "It just started raining." It's really crazy. So there's a lot of things that you know, power and sewer and insurance issues and even safety. So egress of the guests in case of, you know, any sort of an emergency, or egress after dark. You know, the bride doesn't want to pay for lighting, for example, but they can't get to the parking lot, or there's no lighting in the parking lot for the guests, or, you know, we're in a cave type venue, and because I work in wine country, the majority of my sites are non-traditional sites, right? I work in a ballroom less than 10% of the time, and I work at a resort less than, you know, 5% of the time. So, you know, ours are almost all private estate, giant fields, and we're just going to build it and they will come type of scenario. So that being said, we do have a lot of things we have to, you know, kind of plan for, because what if? Now, weather is not one of our what ifs all the time. It depends on the season. But there's a lot of stuff to think about that's more of an expense, things that you have to bring in that A caterer may not have plates or china or flatware. You're now going to have to rent it, or you're not going to have to rent restaurants. Yeah, so I mean, there's all of that, right? So I think that the budget is exponentially higher when you're at a venue that doesn't normally do weddings.
And actually, to piggyback off of what she's saying, one common misconception that people think is that a hotel is going to be more expensive than doing it in your backyard, and in most cases it's the same, sometimes it's more. Because, like, just to use bathroom trailers as an example, if we're having it at a customer's private home and they have a septic system, if they have more than 20 people, we get a trailer, because if that septic system backs up, it is going to be the worst smell they could possibly imagine, and they don't want to have that be their wedding day. So just, there's just like little tricks of like that. And plus, we deal with a lot, like where Sasha is, they don't necessarily deal with the wide range of weather. I mean, we're down as low as, 10 degrees and as high as like 100. So you could have the one July where it's 90 degrees, you could have the next July be 65. It's just, the weather out here is just so unpredictable, so you just have to kind of go with the flow.
So you guys just rattled off quite a list of things that people obviously don't think about, as they're, making these decisions as far as venue and things like that. What would you say would be the number one thing that people don't think about when it comes to planning a wedding? Like, it just doesn't occur to them, and it keeps coming up over and over again. Kathy?
Keep your guest list under control, because every time you add a guest, you have to give them a place to sit, you have to give them something to eat, you have to give them a piece of cake. If you have 8 people, you have to add another table, another centerpiece, and it adds up real fast. So my rule of thumb is, if they are Christmas card friends and you haven't physically seen them in 5 years, potentially you could cut them from the list. If the bride and groom are covering the cost of the wedding themselves and their parents are the ones adding these people to the list that they don't know and whatnot, they're at least in a position where they can say, well, we did not budget for those people. If you would like to cover their cost for the wedding, that would be fine. But definitely the guest list can get out of control very quickly. This is another true story. I had a Greek wedding once where, 10 days before the wedding, going into the weekend, we had 192 people RSVP'd on Friday. On Monday, there were 250 because Dad kept inviting everybody. And we got to a point where we said, you have to stop, because the flowers have been ordered already, the food has been ordered already, and luckily we had a great vendor team, and they did what they could. They were as flexible as they could. And the funniest thing was when they got the quote on Tuesday afternoon, after I told them Monday, the guest count had gone up by 70 some odd people. He didn't understand why the bills went up. And I said, well, you have to feed them. You have to sit them somewhere. Did you think we were just going to, serve them water? So, yeah, you'd be amazed how guest counts can very, very much impact your budget.
I think for us, what people tend to forget about when they're planning the wedding is that it's not about them. That it's actually about the guests, right? And so the guest experience is actually paramount to everything else. And that guest experience is what's going to give them their ROI. And the bride's ROI is always, is it the best wedding that my guests have ever been to, right? So if they hear, oh, this is the best wedding I've ever been to, they think, oh, it's money well spent, time well spent, so happy, my friends and family go to all these weddings, and now they think that mine is the best. So I think that they forget sometimes that, while it is technically their day, it's their wedding day, that the guests take precedence over everything else.
Very good. What, and this is a question, of course, I'm excited to ask you. What kind of event tech tools do you guys use when you're planning a wedding? Any technology that you really love?
So we use a couple of different things. We use HoneyBook. We use Aisle Planner. We've been dabbling in Timeline Genius, checking them out and seeing what they're doing currently. I mean, as far as like day of tech, I mean, I'm not super techy. My entire timeline's on an iPad, so I don't print anything for the day of, and I carry it in my toddy belt. I mean, I can give you like all of these things that we do, but you know, that's probably the majority of what we're using with our clients to get them organized.
Right now, I've been testing out a couple of different ones. I mean, I really haven't found any pre-wedding things that I just have fallen in love with and said, I have to buy this. But on the day of the wedding, we had a few clients that used the WedPix app. And what was nice about it is if they were to post their photos on Facebook and have their own personal hashtag, that's viewable to the whole world. Whereas at least with WedPix, it was only available to family members who downloaded the app and signed up for their particular event. So especially for couples that really want to protect their privacy, that's been a nice option. As far as technology on the wedding day, the #1 pet peeve that I have is when people will stick their iPhone down the aisle or their iPad down the aisle getting the photo of the bride and groom kissing. And these people don't realize that they're getting in the way of the professional photographer, and their precious iPad is going to be stuck in time in this picture. So we do have a lot of brides that will ask their guests to please turn off technology during the ceremony and to refrain from using iPad and iPhone to take any ceremony pictures in the aisle.
So nobody's requested the projection cake mapping yet?
Not yet. Not yet.
We have a baker here that does it, but it's not my gig. So.
How often are you finding that people want the technology turned off versus people who are using the hashtags and Snapchat filters and like really connected? I've kind of heard both ends. So do you see a trend in terms of one being a more popular way of going for weddings?
My clients don't make a few of them will do a hashtag or something, but for the majority of them, they're not there for that, you know. So they don't ask their friends and family to turn off their phones. They just believe that their friends and family have more tact than that, you know. So they're not asking for wireless weddings. They're not asking for completely like outrageous, you know, hashtags either. If they post any of that stuff, they'll do it afterwards, but they're sort of like middle of the road, neither nor. So.
Yeah. I've had a few clients that have had selfie stations set up at their weddings where they'll have like a cutout that looks just like Instagram, but it has their name and wedding date at the bottom so people can take photos at it like a photo booth. And I've had the hashtags where literally they put it in a frame at the bar. So it encourages people to share the photos that they are taking, but I advise all of my couples, please make sure that you tell them to refrain from doing anything, especially down the aisle, because that will get in the way of your professional pictures. And I've seen it happen. And there's always one person that just thinks that rule doesn't apply to them, and what they don't realize is they're actually destroying a picture that the bride and groom do want.
Oh, does I forget? Did you guys do a hashtag for yours?
We did, of course. We were like.
I didn't want to assume.
All technology. I mean, we live streamed the ceremony, so you have to have. We had Snapchat filters. We had the works. Yeah, we did all that kind of stuff.
Right. All right, well, we need to start winding down as we head towards the top of the hour. So we've got kind of our traditional questions that we ask at the end as well. So we'll start with you, Sasha. If you could pick only one, what would be your one tip that you have for other planners that are out there that might want to get into the business?
They want to get into business, or they're
either get in the business, or maybe just starting out. Just kind of your one top tip for someone who might want to take their game to the next level. We'll say.
I'm so glad you asked me that question. So you have to get educated, and you have to continue in education of all kinds. And for me, I go to multiple conferences a year, not only as an attendee but also as a speaker. So if you are looking to kind of move yourself out of whatever rut you feel like you're in, education is one really great way. I started the consultancy for creatives in order to do that for people, to help them sort of help themselves up out of what was going on in their business, because I found that there are a lot of people in this industry that look the same and do the same thing because everyone else does it, and that isn't what gets you to any other level other than where you're sitting right now. So that's my one tip. Get educated, find a mentor, find a business consultant, find a marketing consultant, somebody who can help you with your business and figure out what's going on with it and kind of help lead you that way.
And Kathy, your one tip?
I would say just don't think that because you hang out on chat boards on the Knot and that you Pinterest all day long means that you're a wedding planner. It's nothing like that at all. I think it's important to shadow somebody in the field if you can, because there are people who they call me and they're like, I'm going to be a wedding planner at least multiple times a week. And when I say, sure, tell you what, come out for a couple of hours and see what my world is like. And it's not what you see on the television shows. Those are an 18-hour day edited into 30 minutes. And our job is tough. My feet hurt at the end of the night. You know, I wear all black clothes. I'm not out there, you know, dancing. I'm not the one who's doing all the fun. I'm behind the scenes. And I think there's a perception that our job is very different than it actually is. So not only shadowing somebody, but getting yourself educated. Like the Association of Bridal Consultants is a great place for novice people to start. They have an excellent professional development program that really can give you the foundation for what you're going to need. The International Live Events Association, also known as ILEA, they also have a CSEP program, which makes you a certified special event planner. So just, you know, it's your craft, so you want to take your craft seriously, and you know, just thinking that because you planned your daughter's wedding or your own wedding or your friend's wedding and you hang out on Pinterest, that makes you a wedding planner. But learn your craft.
I don't think I know a single planner that at one point or another didn't have the drunk person come up to them at the end of the night and go, "You have the best job. It's so cool."
So I get a ham sandwich. I really want a ham sandwich.
Just one ham sandwich. There's got to be one back there somewhere.
We had it, seriously.
Nice. Nice. Very nice. Anytime you can make a ham sandwich appear out of nowhere, that's when you're truly at your A game. Final question is just looking for any new and cool resources that you guys might have. It does not have to be related to wedding planning. It could just be a website, a blog, a book, a gadget, something that's getting through your life hack at this moment. So we'll go in reverse order again. So Sasha, we'll start with you on this one.
Okay, so I'm probably completely just mangling this guy's name because I'm having a hell of a time. I think it's James Altucher. Do you know James Altucher? Tech guy, was a millionaire, lost millions of dollars, gained millions of dollars. He's a sort of like a inspirational person, and he kind of tells it how it is. I adore him. He's a little kooky, so I'm really into his stuff right now. I also love Jen Sincero. She wrote "You Are a Badass," and you are a badass at making money. And I think she's no nonsense business consultant. She has the 2 books that are wonderful. I really say listen to them on audio because to hear her tell the stories are that much better. So those are 2 of the things that I would highly suggest that I think are really great.
Kathy?
Okay. I have some apps that I would like to share.
All right.
One is called Follow Meter, and what it does is it keeps track of your Instagram followers and who's liking you, who's unliking you, how many people are fans of yours, even though they're not officially liking you, how many are ghost followers, what's your percentage interaction rate, and it's been very insightful because it's amazing how many stalkers I have on the Instagram page. So that I've really been enjoying that app. Another one that's been really helpful from a business perspective is called TurboScan. And you can basically take photos of multiple pages of something. It converts it into a multi-page PDF, and you can email it to yourself. So I really don't have to deal with photocopying things anymore because I can just use that app. So those are my 2 new favorites, and I've also been into doing little online videos lately, and I downloaded Video Shop. So combining Video Shop with iMovie allows me to make a better video. So those have been my fun little techie tools.
Very nice, very nice. All right, well, we need to start winding it down. Kathy, where can people find out more about you and what you do?
Okay, people can go on yourdreamday.com, or they can go to our Facebook fan page. Just type in keyword Your Dream Day, and when you see the happy laughing girl, that's us. I also have a blog called Peachy Keen Life, which is everything I do but weddings. So I've had a lot of non-wedding related clients that wanted something non-wedding related, so that's where all that is. But I'm on all the social media outlets, so I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and I'm available to talk on the phone, video calling, Skype, FaceTime, all that good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Sasha, how about you? Where can we find out more about what you're up to?
So if it's something that's regarding business and taking businesses to another level, there's a consultancy for creatives.com. And on there, it's an online learning site. There's an 8-week DIY program. There's information about the one-on-one programs, and also fireside chats that I do when I do conferences. And I'm on all the social media as well. You can find me at Sasha Souza Events, which is my handle on most of the social media outlets. You can always email me at sasha@consultancyforcreatives.com. And my website is www.sashasouzaevents.com.
Well, thank you for joining us. And Liz, thank you for joining us as my wonderful co-host this week. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. This was fun.
So where can we find out more about what you're up to these days?
I do have two websites, lizkingevents.com and texytalk.com, which is our resource for other event planners, and Liz King Events on every social network until I change my name now that I'm married, and then we got to figure all that out again.
Start sorting it out. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us, and thank you all for joining us as well on Event Icons. We really appreciate it. Send those questions if you watch afterward on whether it's on the Endless blog or we're working on. There's some problems with the iTunes feed. We're working on getting that sorted out right now. So if you were one of the first people to join in and start subscribing on iTunes, we do apologize for that. We've got some feed issues and we're working on it. Otherwise, like I said, that will be posted on the Endless blog. I'm Brant Kruger. I'm on basically all of the networks as Brant Kruger, BRANDTKRUEGER, and that's about what I'm up to. So thank you much, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time on Event Icons.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #Event. To catch the transcription and all of the resources mentioned, head to www.helloendless.com/blog. This week's episode will be posted and available by next Tuesday. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway and join the Twitter conversation sponsored by Alex Plaxon and Little Bird Told Media. Just tag your post with #EventIcons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #EventIcons.
All right. I am hitting stop on the recording, but it continues to say recording.
That's okay.
I'm sure it'll stop when we turn everything off. So, well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. We'll have to let Will edit this part out if it is in fact still going. But yeah, really appreciate it. Good stuff. I enjoyed it very much. Like I said, I do really enjoy hearing some of the parts of the business that I don't normally get to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So that's about it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. I'm sure Will or Tara will be in touch as far as when things get posted. It usually gets posted about a week later. It's usually about how it works out as far as when things get finally posted on the actual blog. And then, like I said, it will go out onto iTunes. We're just having some issues with the feed, so we'll get that sorted as well.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you very much. So, Liz, since this thing is still recording and I just want to talk afterwards, do you want to just hop on a Skype call or something quick?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm Liz
If
King
you
Events.
have a minute. What's
Yeah.
that? Okay,
Liz
cool.
King Events.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.